Sorry about that, guys. Anywho, like I said, happy Friday. Thank you all for joining me today. Truly appreciate it. To get started, we do have Daniel here who's going to do a presentation about HackPack. I said it correctly? HackPack. And he's going to talk about their great services and what they do at their company, at their startup, and how they can help you during your job search. So I want to welcome Daniel. Hi, Daniel. Good morning. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, this is great.
So I'm going to give you the floor. You can share your screen and go ahead and start, but thank you for being here today.
Of course. Let me share and make sure I got this up. So I'll share that. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, you're good.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. So the goal with this presentation is to give you guys the talk I wish I had when I was starting to study. So we'll talk about some general tips to help you get the job faster. And then we'll also talk a little bit about HackPack and how it works and why we started it. So to kick off, HackPack is a community of engineers studying for programming interviews, from data science to SWE to DevOps. It's just people going through this process. We help you create a tailored study plan with a FANG engineer, and then we help keep you accountable to that plan through community services and daily check-ins. This experience is something that I personally went through, and I know how soul-crushing it can be. I graduated from college with a chemical engineering degree, so I'm completely self-taught. After I graduated, I was unemployed for 4.5 months, just studying for these interviews with very little direction of what to do. I would burn out constantly. It was very isolating. And eventually I got a job. And eventually I ended up working at Facebook. So I worked at Facebook for 4 years. For 3 years, I was working on Facebook Live and Instagram Live. And then for 1 year, I was working on virtual reality video in VR on the Oculus platform. So I've gone through all the waves of this stuff, from studying for my first job, which is a very tough and soul-crushing experience, and also the experience of studying for big tech interviews, which is different. And we'll actually dive into that, but very similar still. So what are we going to talk about today? The first thing we're going to talk about are the most common mistakes that people make when prepping for interviews. I've spoken to probably over 1,000 people at this point. I've done a lot of one-on-one calls, and the same things come up again and again and again. So we'll dive into that a little bit, and hopefully you guys can learn from the mistakes that I made. We'll talk about the landscape and the tools that are available to you. People have strange framings for the different tools that they use, and I want to make sure there's clarity around that, so you're using everything as effectively as you can. We're also going to talk about how you should be thinking about big tech, if that's something you're interested in, and how you should be tailoring your study plan based off of what your target is. If it's your first job, you should be studying differently than if you're studying for a big tech interview. Then I'll share some parting advice, and then I'll have time to answer any questions if you guys have any questions. So with that being said, let's dive right in. What are some of the most common mistakes people make when preparing for programming interviews? Number one, not doing any mock interviews. Nobody passes the first 5 to 10 interviews. Nobody. We have the saying in the community, get the bad ones out during practice. There's no reason not to do mock interviews. You should be targeting one a week, at least one a week. There are plenty of free tools out there. We have a free tool that you could use. If you go to hackpack.io and sign in, you'll be able to match with somebody for a mock interview. These are really important for helping you recreate the interview environment. There's so many different aspects about programming interviews themselves that are brutal. That feeling when you get stuck in an interview and you don't know what to do, that sinks your first 5 to 10. When people don't know how to handle that, when they freeze up and instead of getting creative, their mind goes numb. that is something you need to work through and handle. How do you handle getting read a problem versus reading it on a lead code prompt? That's two very different experiences. What if the interviewer gave you a question that is intentionally vague? I actually had a question that I used to ask at Facebook. I did over 100 interviews at Facebook that was intentionally vague. It was missing key details that you were supposed to ask me questions about. How do you handle that, right? All of these things become clearer and clearer when you do mock interviews and you learn how to handle the social element of the programming interview. I've even passed people that have not written any code at Facebook because they were able to articulate their thoughts really clearly, which is so important, and problem solve effectively and talk about runtimes and space complexities intelligently. Another thing that we see people doing is losing focus. So there's this natural reaction to learn everything or try to get breadth. And that's not doing you any favors. The beauty of learning how to do this stuff online is all of the resources are available to you all the time. The downside to that abundance of information is that you're constantly being pulled in different directions. You might start doing grokking and then hear somebody say Algo Monster is the best. And then you go jump on Algo Monster. And then, oh, your friend just got a job at Facebook, but they did Algo Expert. So now you go get Algo Expert. And what happens when you're doing this is you end up feeling like you're not making any progress. Okay. And you actually are stunting your progression. You're not working through a specific resource. So find out what your study plan is, come up with a study plan for yourself, talk to your advisors, talk to your friends, read online, and stick to that plan. Force yourself to stick to that plan. It's actually harder than it sounds. And I'm sure some of you are experiencing that right now. Learning too many languages is another example of losing focus. Pick a language and stick with it. If you are doing data science, Python is a fantastic language to learn. You're not going to get bonus points in an interview for learning C and doing your interview in C or some more difficult language. Python is really easy to write. So I'd recommend you lean into that. There are exceptions to this. If you're targeting mobile, if you're targeting front end, you should pick a language that's more relevant to that. Or if there's a specific company in mind and they are, only a Ruby shop, you should understand Ruby and be able to speak intelligently about it. But there is value in going deeper than going wide on these topics, especially when it comes to programming languages. Another thing people tend to do is they chase new frameworks. So there's a new JavaScript framework once a month. There's some new framework, some new way of doing things. You have to keep yourself focused and not getting pulled in every direction. The most recent wave that was the Web3 craze. And I'm very bullish on Web3 personally, but not if you're going for your first job. It's a distraction in that case, learning how crypto works and all these things, unless you're specifically targeting that space. But if you're just looking for a job, getting hyper-focused in a space like that is just going to distract you and make this process take longer. And then the other thing, and the most important thing, is burning out. So managing your mental health here is the most important thing. Without your motivation, you're not doing any work. Without your motivation, you're not progressing. And the people who make it through are the people who take their mental health really seriously. One thing that we see is that studying alone, this is the flow that you tend to go through. This is what I went through when I was doing this. I would be studying really well for 2 months, and then I would get sick, or I'd go on vacation, or I'd just miss a few days, and I burn out. The habit is dead. If I try to openly code, my brain is just numb, nothing's happening. I'm just staring at a screen for an hour. And you end up burning out and losing the habit. And when this happens, you tend to get very low and down on yourself. You start to doubt yourself. And this period of time is when people give up. You really, really have to take your mental health seriously to address this. One thing that you should be doing when you have the motivation, even showing up to this call, right? You have the motivation to be studying. You need to build the habits that are going to persist when your natural motivation wanes. So that way the muscle memory kicks in. Creating daily habits is really important, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. But leaning on your community and people around you. So your friends, your family, you guys probably all have a Discord server, vent to each other. We have a public Discord server. It's totally free. You could drop in and be like, this sucks. Because it does. It's absolutely brutal. So a little bit of venting goes a long way. One thing we do at HackPack to help with this is we have weekly syncs where we have daily check-ins where you talk about this is what I did yesterday and this is what I'm going to do today. So that way we can check and make sure you're staying on the right track, not losing your focus. But to handle the burnout specifically, we have weekly calls where people just get on and just vent. And we've had people break out into tears during these. When I went through this process, when I was studying, I actually broke out in shingles. I ended up with this massive rash. And my doctor was like, you need to relax. And I was so focused on getting the job. I was like, I don't care if I get shingles again, I'm just going to do it. You don't be like that. There are much healthier ways of doing it. And the thing I'm trying to illustrate here is that if you do take care of your mental health and you focus on staying consistent, you're going to get there faster. You're going to get the job faster. So take your mental health seriously. And I want to make sure that's underscored. When we're talking about tools, which tools should you be using? There are 1,000 tools on the internet for programming interview prep. Here are my recommendations. Okay. The typical advice you're going to hear is just grind leak code. Do 300 leak code problems, and then you'll get the job. That's not always the case. I've seen people will show up to our Discord server sometime and say, hey, I'm so-and-so, I've solved over 1,000 leak code problems. And sometimes people are in awe. They'll be like, oh my God, that's amazing. But that's not the goal. The goal isn't to be solving leak code problems. The goal is to be getting a job. So there are bad habits you can build with just doing leak code. You need to think a little bit more holistically about things and really track how you are progressing. How confident are you in the different topics? So let's say you're looking at leak code and you're getting really, really frustrated and you're just getting demoralized. You don't know how to solve any of the questions. Every time you try to solve one, you get stuck. Then you look at the solution and the solution feels like, how was I supposed to know this trick? How in the world was I supposed to know this? If you feel that way, take a step back and move over to HackerRank and start there. HackerRank is great for starting. It's free. The problems get progressively more and more difficult versus leak code kind of throwing you into the weeds. So it's better to progress with HackerRank. When you progress through HackerRank, then you go to leak code and you just do those problems every day. Doing problems is fantastic and a core part of your studying prep. In addition to that, you should be reading about the theory around this stuff. It's going to help you progress way faster, okay, than just trying to memorize every leak code solution. There are a ton of resources out there for this. Grokking the Coding Interview, which is the one I recommend, Algo Expert, Algo Monster, Programming Interviews Exposed. I mean, there are so many books. Ace Your Interview Quick. They're all fine. Grokking is good. I like that. The point of them, though, is to give you that breadth and that understanding so you can speak intelligently about these topics. You should pick one of these resources and finish it. All right? And finish it before you move on to any other resources. What normally happens is people start working on strings, arrays, they get to linked lists, easy. They get to trees and graphs, things get a little bit harder. And then they start wanting to look for other resources online and they start distracting themselves. So keep yourself honest with a specific resource, pick one and stick with it. In addition, and then after you've covered your high level theory, you feel like you're getting a decent amount of traction with HackerRank, start doing leak code. Get deep into leak code. Leak reporting, right? Before you look at a leak code solution, you should always ask yourself the question, what intuition do I think I'm missing? Okay, what do I think I'm missing from this problem? If you get a problem wrong, you should be tracking that somehow, all right? Notion is a fantastic tool for tracking your entire interview story. From tracking your applications, which you need to put in a lot of for the first job, to tracking what problems you're solving, to tracking your progress on mock, to you name it. Notion is a fantastic tool. It's very common when I'm speaking to folks for them to say, I'll ask them, how many days a week do you study? And they'll say, oh, I study 5 or 6 days a week. And then we check on their daily check-ins and they're actually studying 2 to 3 days a week. So don't kid yourself and keep yourself honest. Stay organized. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, how should you be thinking about big tech in this story of your interview prep? For some of you that are in big tech, that process is a little bit different than getting your first job. Getting is really a numbers game. I'm sure you've heard this before. You want to get your odds to a decent place, let's say 10 to 20% chance that you're going to pass the interview. And then you want to take 30 to 40 interviews. That's the approach for your first job. That's the fastest way to do it. And you can get there within a month, month and a half. If you're really working, you can definitely pull that off. For big tech, the scope is much broader, much broader. You have to go significantly deeper. There aren't 50 companies to even apply to at the top tier level. You have to get your odds as high as possible. So we say in community, like for the people that are studying for big tech, or let's say you don't have a job, but you want to go to big tech in the future, find that first job and just never stop studying and keep your eye on the prize. Say, I want to work at Google in 2 years. That's very doable. That's exactly what I did. I got my first job. I kept studying when I got the first job, and then I got offers at Google and Facebook. So if I could do it, trust me, you guys could do it. When you're thinking about differences and how to approach these things, the first job, a lot of applications are involved. You should have a good online profile. If you're not updating your GitHub, you should definitely be updating your GitHub. There are little hacks you can do to make it look nicer really quickly. Having a massive README on your GitHub is not necessarily the right way to go. Having good commit history is really important. Good commit history, a clean profile photo, and 6 pinned repositories that are somewhat interesting will help you. And I'll share a link to my GitHub so you guys can take a look at what my GitHub looked like when I was preparing for interviews. You can go back to 2016 and see what I went through. And then, think about getting your first job first, and then down the road, I'm going to go to big tech. If the big tech reaches out to you, they do quite a bit, take the interview. I would say take the interview. I failed my Google interview before I got it. So I failed, and then I had to wait through the cool off period of a year. But in that meantime, I got a job at Refinery 29 and I was working there. So the cool thing about these big tech companies is they let you interview as many times as you want. There's no limit. So you can just keep showing up. It's really a function of how focused you are and how badly you want it for the big tech side of things. But right now, you should be focused on just working through a resource like Rocking, practicing a lot of problems, doing mock interviews, right? Keeping your online profile looking good, and then applying like crazy. That first job is hard to get. That first job is tough. But once you get it, the second job is a breeze. Once you're there for 3 to 4 months, you're going to start getting a lot of people reaching out to you to work for them. So you're going through the thickest part right now. So just hang in there. And some advice to wrap things up: stay focused, keep yourself on track, and keep yourself honest. It's really important to not let yourself get pulled in two directions. When you start to get pulled in a lot of directions, you start to flounder and not feel like you're making progress. When you're not feeling that progress every day, you start to burn out, and avoid burnout at all costs. Set realistic expectations. You are not going to pass your first 5 to 10 interviews. If you do, fantastic. You're the outlier. Do mock interviews to address this, right? Get the bad ones out during practice. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself time to study, okay? And apply. You need to do a lot of interviews. I did somewhere between 30 and 50 interviews when I was going through this before it cracked. And everyone, try to learn from them. When you fail an interview, it's very demoralizing, even if you're telling yourself it's not. Give yourself, let's say you get the bad news, I didn't get this job. Give yourself a little bit and just, try to extract lessons. Try to extract the lessons from the bad interviews. Don't pretend like it doesn't bother me, because that can, again, lead to burnout. Stay organized, keep yourself honest. In addition to you getting there faster by staying organized and you learning more efficiently when you stay organized, it also gives you a really nice recap when you're done. You can look back on this really tough period of your life and have this document that shows all the jobs you applied to, all the problems you did, the mock interviews you did, and shows your progression and how hard you worked. Because after you get your first job, a lot of people are going to be asking you, how did you do it? And when you send them this, they're going to be blown away. So it's pretty fun to see those after the fact. Connect with people. Lean on the people around you. This is why we started HackPack, right? Knowing other people are going through what you were going through makes it so much easier. Having a little bit of guidance makes it so much easier. Connect with folks that are also going through this process, because you're not alone. This is brutal for everybody. Another one is attack ambiguity. If you notice you're starting to lose confidence in the resources you're using or the way you are studying, you have to flag that ASAP. Super important to address it. Get that reassurance from somebody. Sometimes in the community, let's say somebody flags in their daily update, hey, like, I know we spoke a month and a half ago about me working through grokking, but I just read online that this other program is so much better. Sometimes a couple words of encouragement, like, no, stick to your plan, is all people need to hear, and all you need to hear. So reach out to your advisors, reach out to your community, and see what people say. If you're unsure about something, become sure. Prioritize keeping yourself confident in your plan. And then finally, be kind to yourself. This process is brutal, and what you're doing is hard. It's doable, but it's hard. So be patient. You're not going to get everything on the first try. Leak code's not going to make sense for a little bit. That's okay. That's natural. If you every day you show up, you're moving yourself forward, and that's what counts. Okay, so if you stick with it, it will crack. Thank you guys for giving me time to talk. If any of you guys are interested, so for Data Science Academy, if you guys are interested in joining HackPack, shoot me an email directly. Don't just say you're with Data Science Academy, and we'll cut you to the front of the line and give you guys a 25% discount as well. And yeah, now I'd be happy to take any questions you guys may have, if there are any.
Yeah, I actually had one. Can you hear me?
I can hear you chopping in and out a little bit, but yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry. Do you think startups are good to apply for a first job?
Startups, look, for the first job, I wouldn't be picky, honestly. My first job was I worked at a startup for my first job. This really it was kind of a toxic work environment, honestly. But this job in Virginia that I didn't know anybody in Virginia. I'm from New Jersey, and they took me. So I went there. My recommendation to you is take whoever's going to take you. Honestly, like for just getting that first job, getting your foot in the door is the hardest part. You don't have to be there forever. Really, just a few months before the industry starts looking at you as you're vetted. Okay, he's been hired. He or she's been hired already, and then they reach to you for positions. Right? If it's entry level, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? But take whatever job will accept you, is my advice for the first one, and then shoot higher. You can keep interviewing even after you get a job. That's totally fair, and people do that constantly. A great resource if you're interested in startups is the Y Combinator directory. So they have work at a startup program. You should definitely check that out. AngelList is good for that too. But yeah, man, look, there's some incredible startups out there if you're excited for that, if that's the space you're interested in getting into. But startups tend to expect you to be able to hit the ground running. It depends on how early the startup is. If it's 2 people, they tend to want someone who's ready to go. If it's 40 people, sometimes they start bringing on more entry level folks. It depends.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, of course. Anyone else?
Thanks, Daniel. It was very informative and yeah, great talk. I have a couple of questions. The first question is, so you said that preparing for an interview for any other company and big tech companies is like, I guess, 2 different ball games. So my question to you is, if you're starting out your career in data science, should you, from the start, like is it right to aim for a big tech company from the start, or should you really go for, anything else,
Yeah.
and then aim for the big tech?
That's a more realistic approach. So, unless you're very deep in your interview prep, you're not going to pass one of those interviews. They are very hard. The big tech interviews are designed to have false negatives over false positives. And all that means is they know that they say no to a lot of good, to avoid saying yes to bad people. And the reason is they have such a large pool of applicants they get to. It takes time, a lot of time to prepare for the big guys. If one of them reaches out to take the interview and fail it and recognize that's okay. All right. I actually recommend people who are nowhere near ready or looking out into the distance for the big tech interview, big tech company reaches out, take it and fail. What I did was when I failed my Google interview, I reached out 1 year on the day from when I failed. I sent them an email to the recruiter. Hey, I've been studying the whole year. I'm working really hard, blah, 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 blah. Can I interview again? And they were like, yep, come right in. And I literally interviewed again. And that's how I did it. So I would recommend first getting a job somewhere. So you have, depending on your situation, right? If you can go full-time studying, you could go from 0 to full-time, like ready for big tech in 6 months. But, a lot of people have expenses. I can't live that way. I had to have a job, and it's very doable to juggle the two. It's a little bit harder, right? But you have to build your lifestyle around that. So I would go to the Starbucks before work for 2 hours every day and study. And I did that for like a year. It takes a lot to get to these big tech companies, and only like 0.2% of engineers make it there. But the good news is it's very hackable, if you put in the work. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. And my second question was, what are the charges at Hackback, like subscription or whatever it is that we, take after the discount?
Yeah, so normally it's $80 a month for 3 months time, and then for you guys it'd be $60 a month. We have an initial onboarding call, which is one-on-one with either myself or one of the other FANG mentors. This is where you actually get your plan created, and then your goal is to stick to that plan. Then we have daily check-ins once you have your plan, where you post every day. This is what I did yesterday. This is what I'm doing today. That lets myself and the other mentors look at your updates and make sure you guys are staying on the right track. Sometimes you just need to be called out when you're starting to stray and reminded of the path that you've set for yourself. Everybody's a bit different.
Okay, so this is not specifically to prepare for.
Sorry?
I'm sorry, you were cutting off. So I thought but this is not, it's not specifically to prepare for the big tech companies, right? Because you said it's the FANG. So I take it to mean that you're preparing people to interview at the big techs.
Yeah, we, from interns in college to staff level at Spotify already, we help people from first job to big tech, really by helping them manage their burnout, build a study plan, and stay on the right path.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Daniel.
Anyone else?
Well, thank you so much, Daniel. Anyone has any final questions before I let Daniel go?
I do have a question.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. I recently interviewed with big tech, but what I got is a mixed feedback. So it seems like they are interesting to keep talking to me. And I wonder, have you heard or experienced this kind of experience? And I'm really interested in getting into. I really like the team. I think it's one of the. It's just I want to see any chance to getting into a similar team or the team. I don't want to. They said they prefer to see other opportunities instead of going for a lower level, because I do have a job right now.
Which
So I
company
wonder,
specifically?
sorry,
Which company specifically?
Google.
Okay, yeah. So you interviewed and it didn't work out, but they're still interested in you, right?
Yeah,
Is that right?
yeah.
Okay. What's the timeline on that? So it's for a specific team. It's not joining broadly to Google.
Sorry?
Is the interview is for a specific team?
Yeah, it's for specific
Okay.
team.
So there are two ways to enter these companies. One is through the general pipeline, where they just hire a bunch of engineers and data scientists, and then they allocate them to the teams. Then you go through what's called the team matching process. But sometimes specific job postings are listed, and it sounds like you're going through one of those. So a lot of the normal rules don't apply to you. And by that, I mean, you usually can't push those off by, if you're going through the general pipeline, you can usually push that off indefinitely. You could just keep pushing it off 2 months, push off, push off. For the team specific ones, usually they have a need they want to fill quickly. So they're going to push you to interview whenever you can. What I want you to recognize though, is if you do fail the interview, even if you fail it again, the door is not closing at all. Okay. Like it's very normal for people to fail these and come back. That's what I did. I've seen plenty of people do that. So I would push back the interview as much as you can to give yourself time to prepare.
Oh,
there's a
wait,
lot of
sorry.
things to do. It's hard.
Maybe I didn't make it clear. I already failed one. So
Okay.
yeah, so it's not moved, but I did really well on the others. So
Okay.
they were saying they're still willing to talk to me, and I just wonder how to keep that dialogue and maybe see if I can get a second chance.
Yeah. So you should figure out what the cool off period is and ask for that specific position. How long before you can interview again? You can ask the recruiter. That's a normal thing. Just ask them how long before I can interview again. I'm really excited to work at Google and I'm preparing, every day, whatever. And they'll tell you, and then that's great. And then set a calendar, event and start preparing with that as your target date. And then go for it again. That's great that you did well. They, like I said, if they're not 100%, even if you did like 95%, they're just not going to take it. So,
Yeah,
but it sounds
I
like
feel
you're on the right
that.
track. So whatever you're doing, keep it up.
Yeah, I just wonder because they do mention levels. Is it helpful to ask them what level they are hiring? Like understand because one slightly they did mention like maybe they want to consider me at a lower level, and then I was like curious about because in the job posting you can't see the levels, and I don't know
So
about level when I interview as well.
yeah, I would recommend people get down leveled sometimes through the process. Just break in. Like even if they're going to down level you or whatever, I wouldn't worry too much about that. Once you're in these companies, they progress people and you'll get promoted quickly if you're a quality engineer. If you're performing, they will promote you very fast. I got promoted in a year at Facebook from mid-level to senior. So even if they down level you for whatever reason, recognize that's not the end of the world. And once you're in there, you have a lot of opportunity to climb up. So I wouldn't worry too much about that. I'd worry about just breaking in. Okay.
I see. Thank you.
Of course.
Any other questions for Daniel before I let him go? We do have our other presenter here, but Daniel, thank you so much. I think your presentation was extremely helpful. I will definitely share your email. And if there's anything else that you want me to share with them, please send it to me and I'll get that out. But thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it.
It was awesome. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Feel free to reach out via email, guys. Shoot me a message directly if you're interested in HackPack. And yeah, good luck. Thank you for having me. I'll see you guys later.
So, bye, Daniel. Have a great one. All right, guys. So we have our next presenter, Emmanuel from Known. Hi, Emmanuel. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Happy Friday.
Hi, happy Friday. Yes, thank you so much for being here today. So I'm going to give you the floor, and you can begin your presentation on Known.
Yeah, all right, awesome. Hey guys, I'm Emmanuel Kamali. I was a student at New York City Data Science Academy. I think back in 2018 or 2019, I can't remember, but basically all my experiences in data analysis and data science has stemmed from my experience from the boot camp. Whatever Vivian asks me for any help or support, I try to do that because the team at New York City Data Science Academy has been so helpful in my career. So only way to pay it forward is by trying to help you guys who are, I'm not really sure you guys alumni if you finished the boot camp yet, but hopefully I can shed some light on what Known does and how data science is at the intersection of our company. And with that being said, I'm going to share a little deck. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yep, we're good.
All right, perfect. So we're a modern marketing agency. It's a company that's engineered to meet the unprecedented challenges and opportunities facing marketers today. Right now, we're in a world where data is being leveraged to make decisions, but not at the scale or at the speed that companies need. And Known was able to identify that need in the market, and that's where we kind of exert a lot of our force in the industry from a marketing perspective. And there's three pillars that we have. It's science, strategy, and studios. And for today's conversation, we'll just focus on the science of things at Known, because that has to do with media planning, buying and optimization, data strategy and infrastructures, data science, and analytics. We do have a lot of offices around the United States, specifically around the coastlines. These are some of the examples of some of our clients that we've worked with in past. I've actually worked on the Alibaba account, and right now we're onboarding a new client called Tishman Speyer, which is a massive landlord in the United States. So we do a lot of things here within Known Science. We have media science and then data consulting. We utilize science to make strategic recommendations around how can we find new people that are interested in a certain product or service from a marketing and advertising perspective. Additionally, we deploy really interesting models that help us identify what is the churn rate or lifetime value of a specific customer. Additionally, what we also do is build MMM models, which are media mixed models, as well as some other interesting insight analyses like breakthrough analysis, which is how much money can we be spending in a specific platform before we start seeing diminishing returns. And then more on the data consulting side is that we create pipelines from all of these different platforms to help automate and streamline a lot of these data questions that our clients may have. We're just the fastest to be able to set up our clients for success. I've worked for a few different agencies, and this is truly the first agency that I've seen that is actually data at its core. Everything we do is backed by data, and we always have a testing plan in place to answer questions and hypotheses that we have developed with clients that they are interested in knowing and that we're interested in knowing as well. And these are some case studies. This is from our MSK account, but there's one that's really interesting that I want to talk about. We're really good at audience segmentations, which is basically like where can we identify that there's a need for our efforts and where should we be allocating our marketing dollars to generate a lift in brand perception or to generate sales for a certain product or a solution. And working at Known, there's obviously a lot of perks. We have like an open office layout. Everyone really likes to drink here, so like at 5 o'clock almost every day, you'll catch someone at our speakeasy bar in the office having a cocktail. We have a very flat organization where you can really go up to anyone within the organization, the CEO all the way down to a new hire. and just have a nice conversation. I've actually met our CEO. We've been growing rapidly. We're around 1,000 people around the United States, and I've met with my CEO, and we talked for 5 to 10 minutes. But it was really interesting to see someone who has so many employees just take the time to introduce himself and meet new people around the organization. And there's a lot of perks, specifically around Known's really competitive with their salary. They do provide bonuses where typical agencies don't. We do have unlimited paid time off, and we're always cognizant about the mental health impacts of always being indoors and being separated from one another, because we are remote right now. So whenever we do have the opportunity to take time off, no one really wants you to take a full vacation, being 1 week to 2 weeks, because the data supports that individuals that do take more than a Friday off or a Friday, Monday off, they generally come back more enthusiastic to work, they're more productive, and they're more creative. So they also offer $1,000 CAUS voucher to anyone who takes a full 5 days off, which is amazing. It has really good perks from a medical and dental standpoint. And this is just a few snapshots of our office, and just working with this is the Sky Deck that we have, some Zoom meetings. We have a pool table. We have a really nice bar that we have like baristas that make us coffee, matcha drinks, whatever, you name it. It's basically data science and analysts are known, develop a broad skill set. As New York City Data Science Academy has always mentioned, there's like 3 pillars to a data scientist. It's programming, right? So your Python skills, your engineering skills. Then it's visualizing what you're like the data set or the information you're trying to pull. But most importantly, it's a effective communicator. What I've seen in this industry, specifically around data science, is that data science is a broad term, and there's a lot of sub industries within data science. But what really propels a data scientist to move up the ladder quickly is everyone can wrangle data and get what they need to look at, right? It's a whole different ball game whenever you're having to put that in a deck and communicate these really, really complicated and sometimes black box algorithms to people who have no clue what we're talking about. So what Known has really been effective at is hiring people who not only can program, but how can we create a story with the data that we just pulled? And then how are we going to be able to communicate that and try to sell it or try to get buy-in from our clients or from our higher ups that in fact this analysis that we're doing is worth it and worth their time. And diversity and inclusion is at the forefront of Known. We're very forward with everything that we do, and we celebrate all walks of life. And this is kind of what we're seeking. Is a key criteria to say is you need to be an excellent communicator. You need to be self-driven. You need to be collaborative. You need to have an optimistic output, and you need to be organized. Additionally, there's open positions around our data analyst, senior data analyst, data science, and data scientist media consulting. I work under the data scientist media consulting division. Since I have a media background for the last few years, I've been able to propel my career by focusing in on being a effective analyzer of data and communicator from a marketing perspective. And that's all.
I'm so sorry. Oh, thank you so much, Emmanuel, for your presentation. I have a couple of questions. So, you said that you currently are working remotely. Are you guys planning on going back into the office?
So we do have if you ever hear the acronym RTO, it's return to office. There's been talks for the last 2 years about going into the office. Just being such a forward-thinking company, you can't really force anybody to come into the office,
Right.
but they do have expectations to at least have people come in at least 1 to 2 times a week.
Mhm.
So I've personally been in the office a fair few times, but looking to change that shortly.
Got it. So are they open to hiring people outside of those who are willing uh to commute to New York?
Yeah, I think they're pretty open to it, but at the end of the day, let's say a year from now, most
Right.
likely a lot of organizations are going to require employees to come in at least 1 to 3 days a week.
Got it. Okay. Do you guys have any questions for Emmanuel? Oh, you guys have some openings currently, right?
I believe we do, yes.
Okay, so should well, I'll actually email you about that in regards to having them apply. Anyone that's interested, what would be the best method? I'll just email you that and then follow up with them. Do we have any other questions for Emmanuel before I let him go? No? Well, Emmanuel, you're my kind of people. You're wearing a Yankee hat, so we're in the same boat. So thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. Have a great rest of your Friday. Everyone else, thank you so much for joining today's presentation. I really hope you guys found it helpful. I will be sending a follow-up email, including all the information for follow-up. And have a great rest of your weekend, guys. Speak to you soon, and I'll see you guys next week, Friday. Bye, Emmanuel. Thank you, guys. Bye, guys.